Thanks everybody for coming. Yeah, I wanted to talk about some work I've done recently on trying to figure out just how fast these inference engines are when you run open models on them. So the kind of been talking at AI Engineer since it was AI Engineer Summit 2 years ago, and for a long time it's basically been the like OpenAI wrapper conference, right? It's like because yeah, what am I going to do? Am I going to run an agent with BERT? Probably not. And that was like, it was exciting to talk about all these cool new technologies, see people building stuff like Cursor on top of them or Devin. But for me, as somebody coming from like having trained my own models a lot, it was like, oh man, I want to touch the weights. I want to play with them. I want to like hack them. And the quality just like wasn't there yet to do like some of the interesting stuff. And that's changed. You've got the LLaMA series, we've got the Quen series, we've got DeepSeek, and so now we're like catching up to like maybe even literally catching up with the frontier labs, which would be pretty crazy. But we're at the very least like at the point where a lot of things people have been talking about at AI Engineer for years are possible with open weights models where they weren't before. And at the same time, there's also the development of the software stack on top of that. Also, as somebody coming from like writing and running my own PyTorch models, I was like, how hard could it be to run a language model? Like you torch nn.module, wrap a class around it. And like, yeah, I mean, having done stuff with transformers before, it's like, oh yeah, it's a little more complicated with transformers. Training looks weird, inference is different. But you know, pretty quickly the state of play has advanced a lot on how to run a transformer, right? KV caching is like, you know, just the first thing, and then it's this, you know, page detention, now multi-token prediction, speculative decoding, all this stuff. That's like pretty hard to write yourself, and so, you know, you want software to do that for you, probably. And so these open source engines are available now. You got VLLM and SGLang and Tensor TLLM. So the combination of those two things has like kind of flipped the playing field around to where there's like, you'd need a really good reason to run your own models, like you're the US government or something, or you want to run on an air-gapped system, or you had to like believe it in your heart. You know, you had to want open source models like the like Noose or Prime Intellect. You had to be like a decentralized crypto bro or whatever to want to run your own open models. But yeah, now the situation has changed. It's really exciting. It sort of finally makes sense to self-host. Just like wanted to do this really quickly. Was anybody here at the AI Engineer Summit 2023, the like first one? Anybody? Okay. Did anybody come to the AI Engineering 201 workshop the day before in the 500 Treat Avenue? Maybe not. I talked to one or two people who were there. So I gave a talk on like, you know, how to do your own AI stuff back then. Just wanted to pull out like a couple of slides. So like one of the main, this is like 2023, we're like, who's going to win, open models or closed models? And the key statement in the talk was like, if capabilities requirements saturate, open models will catch up to proprietary models and then dominate for those cases. Inspired by what you see with operating systems, databases, programming languages, like as soon as there's like a sort of like, you know, capability level that everybody like, that you don't need the absolute best thing, you just need something that's good enough. Open like collaborative projects tend to catch up and then have better properties, and that's happened with open models, so check. Yeah, so that was mostly around like capabilities, and you know, at the time there was only LLaMA, but now we got a lot. The other one was, yeah, talked a little bit about LLM inference libraries at the time, and most of them are gone, TGI, RIP, for example, but VLLM was good then, it's stuck around now. Yeah, so I don't know what the slides in 2027's AI engineering conference are going to look like, but at the very least, like 3 of my slides from 2 years ago were right. So yeah, hopefully it's not those 3 slides again in 2 years. But yeah, all right, so what does the LLM engine landscape look like 2 years later? Let's take a look. So what you know, we were advising a bunch of people on how to run, like people were coming to us like, I want to run my own code completion editor in editors. I want to run like big backfill jobs to to like enrich data in databases with language models. It's too expensive or to run it on OpenAI, or I train my own model, so it's too expensive to run it on a provider like Fireworks. They want to run it on more generic infrastructure like what we have at Modal. And so people would come and they'd be like, all right, well, how fast can you run an 8 billion parameter llama model with SGLang with 128 tokens in, 1,024 tokens out on a Tuesday when Mercury's in retrograde? And that would take, at first it took a couple days to figure out how to make sure all the packages are working, that we've got the fastest versions installed, and that we can give a trustworthy number. Got that down eventually to an hour or two, and then built some benchmarking software so we get it done in about 15, 20 minutes. But then the people ended up asking a lot of similar questions, so we decided to just fifth mantra of performance is do it when they're not looking. So compute the thing ahead of time and store it. So we ran a giant benchmark over 10 or so different models on VLM, SGLang, and TRTLM on about 10 different context lengths, and put that all up on the internet. So let's take a look at that. Let's see, I'll drop into this one. This is the live version of it. So you can find this at modal.com/LLM-almanac. The idea is that this is just one page in the your almanac, your little book that has the useful things you need to know to be an LLM engineer. So to start, we've got our benchmarking results, benchmarking methodology in detail, the open source code for it, and a little executive summary. Hope to put more stuff up there as we accumulate the things people need. Things about speculative decoding and multi-token prediction and quantization. But yeah, so to start off, we got this little interface here. So anybody, what's a model people want to see results for? Hopefully that's legible to people. Anybody got a favorite? Quen 3? Minstrel? Okay. Excuse me. Oh man, that's my boss. I'm not going to do that one. Okay, we'll do any engine here. Oh yeah, we didn't do. So this was fun. SGLang's Quen 3 support is a little buggy for the 8-bit quant that we ran. So I think we only have results for VLM. We'll stick with any engine there. Oh yeah, by the way, if you try this thing out, you'll see if there's a giant tensor of configurations, right? And we'd love to have that full tensor, but it doesn't always. It's either not always possible or it's not clear how to do it. So there's a place where you can contribute configurations, so we can build up a nice big database of how to run these models. We also haven't carefully optimized any of these things. We started with out-of-the-box performance for all the engines, which is optimizing 100 configurations is going to take some time. So we'd love contributions of optimized implementations, especially TensorRT-LLM, which has a ton of knobs, and they have names like user buffer. What's that? Okay, yeah. So first token under 1 second. Let's say this is a pretty common SLO. You want 1 second's a nice round number. People feel that's a good amount of time to wait. I'd say 300 milliseconds is a tighter one. That's more interactive. That's your Doherty threshold, if you're a fan of Halt and Catch Fire. Made up number, but if somebody repeats a made up number enough, it's a real number. So yeah, 300 milliseconds. Okay, so we can get a throughput of about 1 request per second on Quen 3 in the mixture of experts model on VLM for 128 tokens in, 1,024 tokens out. So that's what we got. Over here we got a little code snippet here. So it should be the case that you can UVX modal run this, and if you have a token, that should just work immediately. And by immediately, I mean after 5 minutes of loading the model weights and spinning up the model server, but that's as immediate as it gets. Cool. All right, so that's one result. Who's asking for Quen? Are you satisfied? Yeah? Okay, great. Gemma 327B. All right, on this one, let's do any engine here. All right, this was, all right, sorry, we got a tight filter on this. I'm going to put the first token filter up. Oh yeah, this one, we're doing the BF16 quant is the only one that we could get working at first. So I think we eventually got the 8-bit quants working. I don't think that's a hard blocker, but it was the easiest one to get going was the BF16. So these are definitely slower. So you'll see 27 billion parameter models, so 10x smaller in model weights, roughly the same number of active parameters as Qwen 3, but we're getting like about the same like throughput, requests per second on the same load, 128 in, 1024 out. So yeah, so it's interesting. You can see sort of which ones have had more optimization work on them. I think the Qwen 3 models and the LLaMA model series, you see a lot more optimization. This is also one of the ones where you saw the biggest gap between SGLang and VLLM, the Gemma one. So it looks like the VLLM team spent a little bit more time, or Google's contributed a little bit more to VLLM on getting good results. Oh yeah, let's go. Yeah, so the other thing you'll see is you generally, like, so I just switched, sorry, I should say what I'm doing. So this is 128 tokens in, 1024 tokens out. And you can see we're getting about 1 request per second on this guy. Let's just, and the first token comes back in 400 milliseconds. Let's flip it to 1024 in and 128 out, right? So this is going from like a reasoning workload to like a RAG workload. Big scare quotes on that, but it's just the difference between whether you're dominated by decode time, like more of your tokens are decode, or more of your tokens pre-fill. And what you'll see very consistently in these results is that you get much higher throughput if you have more like tokens in the context as opposed to tokens being generated. Very straightforward. If you know your transformer architecture, it's like autoregressive versus parallel. Like, yeah, one of the first things you would learn if you looked at the, kind of the implementation of the architecture. But it's nice to see it like nice and, very cleanly. More of an empiricist than a rationalist myself, so I like to see data and not like chalkboard stuff. So what I'm getting at here is that the request per second that we're seeing here is about 4 requests per second for VLLM on the same workload, but with like context instead of generation as where the majority of the tokens are. So this is I gave a talk on GPUs a little bit earlier today, and like one of the big takeaways there is find things that like are throughput oriented and involve a lot of arithmetic and not like moving memory around or communication. And that's exactly the difference here. You have like big matrix multiplications, load the weights one time, use them a bunch, and that's exactly the difference here. And it's a 4x improvement, and that's using BF16, which does not have tensor core support. No, BF16 has tensor core support, but it's the slow tensor core support compared to FP8 or FP4 on Hopper and Blackwell. And so the real win there is the shorter numbers, faster multiplication. It's actually quadratic in the bit width, so you get a big win as you go down. So this if we were to run some results with FP4 on Blackwells, you would see an even bigger gap than just this like 4x improvement. 4x is like barely enough to wake up for, But yeah, so that's a little, not every application can you change that. Your users might be bringing queries to you, so you don't have control. But it's more the sort of thing where you a product person is like, we should improve the quality. You're like, oh, how can I improve the quality without killing our latency? Don't have it, don't immediately reach for reasoning, reach for context instead, because it's going to be cheaper and you're going to get better you're going to find it easier to hit your latency SLAs. I forgot to point this out, but the latency is almost identical in time to first token, even though we're doing 10 times as many tokens. Basically a free lunch. Okay, so that's sort of how I envision people using this interface and the data. There's a URL somewhere where you can just download the raw data. If you're interested in that, hit me up. The code is also open source if you want to run some of these benchmarks yourself. I think I'll close there. Lots of other stuff to talk about, like our benchmarking methodology, which is written up here, the executive summary, which you can share with your leadership on running open models, but I'll take a question or two before we close out. Yeah.
How far can you drive the max throughput? You had it set to 4.
Yeah.
How far can you go out before it starts to inflect up?
Yeah. So one thing I'll say is this is throughput per replica, right? So this is one GPU. Yeah, one H100. So the way you solve your total throughput is by scaling out rather than scaling up, right? So if you want 400 QPS or whatever, eventually you're just going to have to scale out. But to your question of how do you know why are we saying this is the highest throughput you can get?
Exactly.
Yeah. So the answer is goes to our benchmarking methodology. What we do is first we dump 1,000 requests and wait for them all to come back. Calculate the seconds divided requests divided by seconds, 1,000 divided by how long it took. That's like a maximum throughput, right? Because we gave it we exposed the maximum parallelism to the engine. So presumably they were smart enough to handle that. Gives you a maximum RPS. Any more than that, you should expect from queuing theory that the latency will blow up, right? Then the other side is you send one request at a time, wait for it to come back, send another. And that gives us our that's the fastest you could possibly run the server. And we sweep between to get the numbers that are here. But yeah, cool. All right, I'll got to move on to the next talk. I'll be outside if you have any questions. Thank you very much.